If we could rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Hillis, if you could take attendance.
Ms. Castle? Here. Mr. Hirakawa?
Here.
Mr. Lanassi?
Hello.
Mrs. Mack? Here. Mr. Strang?
Here. 1.2, review of the agenda. Any additions to the agenda? Review the agenda?
Excellent. Yes, thank you. Good evening. Welcome to our March Board of Education meeting. Thank you so much for joining us. Very exciting, actually. We typically look for groups to be recognized for our Rural Recognition Program. Tonight we have two groups that also will follow the meeting up with a budget presentation and an update from our architect regarding the capital project. So very informative evening.
Speaking of the architect and the project, that's why we're a couple minutes late. The board just took a tour of the new area, and it is coming along great. So, when the architects talk about it, you can listen or not. Moving along to Royal Recognition 1.3. You want to talk about who's being recognized?
Certainly. So, again, once again, thank you and families. Thank you for joining us and being so patient. Again, we know it's a little toasty in here and crowded, but thank you for being so really so many people can fit in the first row. That's awesome. So actually at this point I'm going to ask Mr. DeSoto to join me. Mr. DeSoto, our fifth grade teacher and athletic director in the back. So as you know, one of our traditions that the board likes to do is find ways to recognize students that really go above and beyond to epitomize the mission statement. And I say this a lot at meetings ad nauseum, but just to say it again, boys and girls, you see it in the hallways. We have it on the bottom of our piece of paper, the school's mission statement. And really what it says in a few words is basically that Gardner Dickinson wants to make students that really go above and beyond, really are good citizens, and really do things that really are just good. And so really, when I put the invitation out to our staff and say, does anyone have any students they want to recognize? I always am interested in what students come forward, what groups come forward. So both of our groups tonight are being recognized in that same vein. So Mr. DeSoto came forward when I sent the email out and said, hey, are there any groups for our March meeting? He said, I couldn't be more impressed, and actually as a building, I certainly agree. I was really impressed with my class, what they did with the Start with Hello Week. And so many of you, especially in Mr. DeSoto's class, the Start with Hello Week was a concept that came out of the Sandy Hook Promise, and really it was the idea of basically breaking down those walls that kind of happened with natural cliques and making schools welcoming places. So as much as those weeks come and go, Mr. DeSoto's class really kind of kept that spirit going, and that really was large part, actually it was because of Mr. DeSoto and also the work of his class. When Mr. DeSoto brought that up, it was just a perfect epitome of that mission statement. So boys and girls, really, you did a great job in taking that Start with Hello and those activities that went with that and really kind of making that mission statement come alive. So Mr. DeSoto, since you're up here now, thank you. Well, I kind of gave a little summary. If you don't mind kind of maybe taking us through some of the things your class did, because they really did this,
Yeah, what Dr. Reardon said. No, so in fifth grade we did for, what seemed like 3 months, a 21-day kindness challenge. So in which kids try to come up with some different ways to show kindness, sit with different people at lunch, leave positive notes for peers, teachers. Some kids went and helped out in other classrooms. We did some different icebreaker activities where we put Oreo cookies on our forehead and tried to eat them. So that was fun, just trying to be as positive and encouraging as possible, but teaching them to stand up for something, right? If you see something, say something. It takes courage to go over and sit with the kid who's by themselves. So really that's about it. I can talk in front of kids all day long, but with all these eyes on me, I feel a little, I don't know. I'll leave that to the superintendent, I suppose.
Oh, they're staring at you, though. Please no. But if I may say, boys and girls, the fact that 21-day challenge, this was something that as much as the week came and went, those activities you did leave a lasting impression. So really.
We did get 77 likes on Twitter, so I was
and it's still there, too, so,
It's not too bad.
And actually, going along with that, and joking aside, if I may, too, Mr. DeSoto tweeted those pictures out if you do check out his Twitter page. But actually, that was being retweeted, right, by the Sandy Hook Promise organization and some other people that are really as far as, Canada?
Yeah, I was in contact with an author from Canada who wrote a book about bullying, and then we were trying to get her to do Skype and different things, and I was just in contact with her last week. She's actually taken a step back and trying to focus on her career first, and once she's done, hopefully she'll be in touch so that she can do some different things with the lower elementary school. That I think I'd be speaking with someone in Canada, an author nonetheless. Maybe it was hockey, but no. But it's pretty impressive. Like, we try to teach the kids how far something can actually go. We tried to start a trend like random acts of kindness. someone else must have beat us to it, so, but we'll take second. That's all right, I guess. I'm a Bills fan. We're used to it.
So again, superb jobs. Again, how about a global round of applause for your classmates? And Mr. DeSoto's class, those of you that might have been through this before for different organizations, you might know our tradition is, and Mr. DeSoto, I'm going to ask you to stand to my left because someone always has to stand to my left.
No,
That's
no
part of the
problem.
procedure, so thank you. Now I'm comfortable.
You want me to make a motion?
If you don't mind, please. We'll second it. So students, if you don't mind, we're going to call your name up, if you could, and actually I'm going to have Mr. DeSoto read your names, and the certificate does read, and families, again, congratulations for the Wine and Scalene Free School District for your leadership and facilitation of activities during Start With Hello Week. So again, that's what it says. We're going to obviously have you stand up here and stay for a photo, and then we'll be featuring those of you that aren't here on our morning news program. So, and you get to do the Walk of Fame here by shaking all of our hands, and that's priceless. So,
Can I make my suggestion again that we do the photo over there because there's a lot of them and they're not going to be
Yes.
here. So in front
Ms.
of the
Mack is
screen.
one of our photography aficionados, so yes, we found that this is a better spot. So we're actually going to walk through, but then if you head back towards the screen, that'd be great.
I second that motion. Yeah, I know, right? Nick Kraz. Penny Cominal. Jordan Reed. Dominic DiNardo.
It's okay.
Hey, you changed up. I like this.
It's all right. Now around by the screen. Down by the screen. There you go.
Isabella Marantelli.
Messing them all up. Very good job. Nice job.
Draven Russell. Maya Briggs.
Nicely done.
Nice job. Proud of you.
Elazar Billick. Ava Rio. Colin Anslow. Gabby Rokia. Lainey Blaber.
Congratulations.
Blake Kilgallen. Haley Wagner. Julia Bruno. Joe Coonan. You're welcome, Joe.
Good job, Joe.
Good job.
Alexis Vincent. Katie Backus. Ethan Keenan. Patience Harrison. Rihanna Gray. Liam Ouimet. Delaney Swinson.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was distracted. I held it. My fault.
Good job.
All right, folks, thank you. So actually, we're going to have you stand up, Mr. Soto, if you don't mind joining your class.
No,
That'd
I'm
be
good.
great.
They could just take the picture. It's about them.
No,
It's
no.
not about me. It's about
part
them.
of
So
the procedure.
Congratulations.
no, I'm good.
Good job.
I'll put it on my Twitter page at GD DeSoto.
Family's great time for a photo.
I'll Photoshop.
Are we all? Come on.
You know, the folks who make eyes over here. Family's good? Excellent. Boys and girls, thank you so much, and families, thank you so much for coming out. It was awesome, and again, what you do obviously does make a difference. Oh, perfect. Our next group so actually, I think this is the first time we've had 2 groups in one meeting, so this is pretty exciting for us. It's rather epic. So, Ms. Sepp, I'm going to ask you to join us, if you don't mind. Ms. Sepp is our yearbook advisor, and our second group, as I said before, it's very exciting. Again, while March can be a very busy month, there's many reasons not to do something. It's always very exciting when your staff and faculty come forward and say, you know, we want to nominate this group, we want to recognize this group as well. So we always relish that chance. So Ms. Sepp brought forward this group, the yearbook group. And basically, again, while Ms. Sepp, I'm going to ask to kind of talk a little about the process. The yearbook is kind of one of those kind of mythical things that just kind of happens. You know, it appears in June, it comes in boxes, and it looks fantastic, but you never really know how it came together, how someone arranged all those photos from, you know, soccer games all the way through productions. But obviously it takes a lot of work and a lot of effort and a lot of really close eyes on that. So I'm not even sure exactly how it happens either. I just know there's a lot of things going on. So Ms. Sepp, how does it happen? Which is why you nominated your class. Or your group, sorry.
So it's a really big group. The 5th graders, 6th graders, 7th graders, and 8th graders come help me every day. Sometimes they stay after school twice a week. And they all have different jobs. The 5th graders are the photographers. The 6th, 7th, and 8th graders are photographers and designers. And it's really nice because once they get going, I really don't have to do much. Like the designers are really good about writing down how many pictures they need of every class, of every event, and then I pass that info to the 5th graders, and they kind of take care of it. And they're all so good at using technology. They use their phones. They're allowed to use their phones at school. They know how to use the program, and they're all so helpful, and they've gotten so good at taking pictures. Like at first all the pictures were of like backs, and now the kids are really good at saying like, get together, come on, smile. In fact, we could have helped that first group, but but we worked hard today, so I'm just really thankful that so many of you joined, and you're all so helpful, so thank you.
So we'd like to recognize you, actually. So Ms. Sepp, if you would mind doing the honors, and since you had a chance to see a first group go through, now we have the system down wonderfully. So we'll stand by the projector screen. We got that.
Sam Demarest, Isabella Marty, Samantha Flagg, Sydney Davey, Brian Bates, Molly Graff, good job, Angela Lannacy, Izzy Nyber, Max Ryan,
Good job, Angela.
Avery Vavoda, Gabby Gumwalt, this way.
It doesn't count when you get a handshake, sorry. Yeah, now it's
Gabby's not here, okay. Daniela Tedesco, Gianna Gross, no. Alexis Willett, here she is. Brooklyn Wells, I don't think I see her. Maura Lander, Delaney Flabber. Sorry, I don't have them in class either, so. Sorry, what is it? How do you say it? Laney Blaber. Sorry. Ethan Keenan. Dominic Bernardo. Good job. Katie Backus.
Good job.
Nick Krez. Nick. Aiden Tobias. Madeline DeFries, not here.
Yearbook nicely done, Miss Sepp, nicely done. Thank you. I feel kind of self-conscious taking a photo of a yearbook group. It seems almost.
And then they would like a picture.
I know they want to take our picture. Okay. We're ready.
They're good. They're got. They got it.
You were ready to change your shirt?
I did.
That's fantastic.
Ooh, good idea, Bella. Advertise, promote. We gotta sell. Thank you, Miss Marty.
Nice. That is great testimony. Yearbook, you mind looking over here? That's okay. That'd be great. Okay. Lighting is perfect. Thank you. Nice. And now, let's see.
You want to do our picture now, Sarah?
Please. So
Sure.
I'm thinking we'll move over to where those chairs are over there.
So-
we have 2 photographers.
Okay.
So, folks, what we're going to do is we're going to take a little 2-minute break to take our picture. So if you came out to join us for our recognition, thank you so much. You're certainly welcome to stay. We'd love to have you.
Yes, we
But
would.
if you need to exit, we certainly...
This is a good time.
Well, yeah.
Understand. Come on.
How are you, Belle?
Good, Laura, how are you?
Do we get to see proofs of that before?
Yeah.
You only get one veto. One veto.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Doing okay, thanks.
Thank you to Silas for making this.
didn't make the championship. He shut them out.
Oh, really?
Shut them out?
4 points.
No, they got shut out. Pizza party on Tuesday. Now that's it.
Round of sorrows and pizza.
Couldn't get the 4. Couldn't even get 1. Yeah.
You just got it.
Where did everybody
Cut back
go?
soon.
Nobody wanted to stay. So sad.
Was it something we said?
Usually is. So I'm like, you can go. Don't worry.
Doesn't he want to be a board member?
Okay,
Is that on your list of things?
back to the meeting. 1.4, approval of minutes of the previous meeting,
Move.
February 15th, 2018.
Okay. Am I going to be done on that one?
Second.
Any discussion, changes? Nope. All those in favor?
Yep.
Aye.
All those against? 1.5, acceptance of financial reports. We have 2. We have the internal claims auditor's report for February of 2018, and we have the monthly treasurer's report with budget transfers. Need a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Any questions, discussion?
We didn't get this one ahead of time, did we?
No.
We didn't get this one ahead of time.
Did you need a moment to look at it? Kathy, did you need a moment to look at it, or do you want to? No? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those against? 1.6, visitors and communication. Letter A, communications to the Board of Education. I
none.
did not receive any. Anybody else receive any?
Just the email I sent.
Oh,
Did you print it?
I did not know
I
that.
didn't print it.
About the
The bus transfer.
bus transportation design project. Yeah.
You just want to speak to
Yeah,
it?
yeah, we did, Darcy received, is it today?
It was today, so I didn't know if it would make it into the night.
It made it to you, so I guess it'll make it tonight. We received one email from the person who runs the science club requesting that we provide bus transportation after science club. Do you want to talk about that for just a moment?
Sure. The context of that email, I believe the board did see it, it was forwarded a copy. Basically was when we run elementary after-school activities, typically sponsored by the PTA, or formerly the PTO, basically there's been requests at times to use our middle school runs, which we're calling it the late bus, but it really is our middle school runs. It's just not, we're not at capacity to do that right now. Basically our runs are, for the middle school run at 3:17, there's one less bus. We've also picked up, actually since last year, about 20-something students since that on the same number of buses. So our buses are pretty consolidated for the afternoon, which makes it impossible for us really to offer that after-school option for elementary kids, not only for science club, but actually for any after-school club. It just would be something we couldn't sustain without adding additional busing. So to be fair, it's the district stance that it would be better just not to offer after-school busing, that basically parent will do pickup for any activities they do. Well, we'd love to support it, it just wouldn't be, I mean, really the buses are pretty at capacity now as it is, so to be adding another 30, 40, 50 kids on that. Also, routing changes as well. When you add an elementary student to a middle school run, the middle school runs are kind of more clustered, whereas elementary runs tend to be a little more door-to-door, so it makes it a little less feasible to suddenly throw 20 kids on a route and then say, well, we'll just run the same route. So in theory, it sounds like, oh, we could just kind of add a few more. In practice, it's a little difficult. So again, and if you expanded that to Lego Club, which does have over 75 individuals doing that, it would be incredibly impossible to do that. So basically, the district does feel at this point it's better not to offer that as an option. It just can't be offered at this point.
Thank you for that explanation.
Thank you.
Letter B, opportunity for the public to comment. Anybody sign up?
Nobody signed up.
Okay, thank you. There will be an opportunity later if somebody does want to sign up. 2.0, reports to the Board of Education. 2.1, Board of Education board discussion / reports. Looks like we have a couple things on the agenda for this. We'll start with the project update in CS Arch.
Okay. Good evening again. Thank you. This is a copy of the financial snapshot of our project. As
articulate the highlights of it real brief here.
Thank you.
One for your records. You're welcome. And I'll call your attention to. Hello.
I have one too.
That's up to the board.
I don't think we really have enough for all of the public, so I don't want to. And there's the agenda if you want the agenda.
Yes, different document, I'm sorry. Okay. Just recapping briefly, took many of the board members, all the board members actually, on a walking tour of the building progress in the addition before tonight's meeting. Highlighting some of the areas, the pre-K area, the classrooms, the access ramps into the building addition. As you saw, transitioning from the existing building. We did not visit the storage area in the basement just yet. It's just not feasible to get there this evening. Progression of the work is such that the building envelope itself is nearly weather tight, meaning that the roof is on, the walls are up. The windows still have some temporary plastic on the openings, and they're scheduled to be coming in. They started with one particular window, and the rest of the windows are scheduled for this coming week, which will button up the exterior shell. There's temporary heat running in the space. Tomorrow morning is the balance of the last of any interior concrete placement in the floor areas. The stair tower has been erected, and there is mechanical, electrical, and plumbing work continuing to be roughed in. As many of the board members saw, such as ductwork, piping, electric conduits and raceways, as well as some of the wiring, the conductors themselves too. We also took a peek out to the music room area and get a visual idea of what the stage is going to look like here shortly. So it's kind of taking shape, and I think most people had the opportunity to get that visual this evening for the first time. So in the next several weeks, drywall will be going up on the walls and closing things in, and in a month's time, it's going to have a very different look. The one thing that has to be orchestrated yet is during the vacation break in April, some of the larger mechanical equipment has to come in through the gymnasium to the stage area in its final resting place. It can't fit through some of the other doors, so some of that temporary wall has to come down while that comes in, and then it'll be put back in place. Gas service has been completed to the area. Exterior walls have spray foam insulation installed, and there is the exterior surface, the EFIS, as you talked about in the past, is weather dependent, and that is not starting just yet. Okay, so that'll be coming in hopefully weeks, as opposed to months, the way the weather's been. Right now, the anticipation for completion of the interior space of the building is targeted to the 1st of June. So it would be done in time for setting up for graduation in the gym space. The exterior components, like finish, could complete over the course of the summer without any interference to the rest of the building. Excuse me. So relative to the financial piece that I handed to everybody, the first page highlights the original contract values, and then calculates the approved changes to date, resulting in revised contracts and the resulting invoicing and percentage paid to date, which is on average about 49%, if you look at those numbers. It also shows where the original in-contract contingency allowances are at, and what that resulting pending items estimate is, and it's a low number this time around, $2,800 and change, and I'll explain that in just a moment as we move through these pages. On pages 2 and 3 are each individual contract with any respective changes processed since the last report, which in this particular case there are none. There has been no specific movement. So I'll take your attention to page 4. And I'll just run from top to bottom. It's real brief. The original contracts were 4.563, $4,563,000. We've already approved processed credits to the tune of $33,617, resulting in adjustment contracts of $4,529,000. As you know, the voter authorized referendum was 5.139, $5,139,000 and change. Forgive me, but I'm rounding off these numbers. the adjusted contracts, if you subtract those out, the $4,529,000, less the incidentals budget of $879,000, which is a static number that we've been carrying. And then the $2,800 of the pending items that I suggested just a moment ago leaves you with the balance for the remaining project funds at a black number, or I'm sorry, a red number of $290,358. Now, just real quick, you're saying to yourself, how can that only be $2,800 in pending? I'll just give you a couple of quick examples. We have several credit proposals that are in the process of being reviewed and vetted. They have not been processed. For some $4,200 potential credit for some reduction in scope in one of the toilet rooms. Some of the stone copings on the roof area that Kyle's working with. It should be netting a credit of $3,800 and change. And another example would be the garden fence that we talked about last year. We still haven't processed that because we're not satisfied with the backup information we've received to date. But that would be, right now is a pending number of $4,800, almost $4,900 in credit. So some of those things add up to offset a few of the other smaller pending add items to a net $2,800, which is unusual for me to say at one of these presentations. Again, if there are any specific questions to any of those line items, feel free to send those questions through Dr. Reardon to me, and I'll get you a very specific answer. Any questions that I can answer this evening? Hopefully I captured it all for everybody. All right.
It was great, and the tour was excellent.
Yeah, it was great seeing
Next time around, it'll be
Exciting.
even better.
Yeah.
More exciting.
Yes.
Yeah, no, it was great. I'm glad I got to see it.
By the time you see it the next time, you're going to be like, okay, when's it going to be done? Because it's like at that next milestone.
Yeah, right.
So, I'm glad you enjoyed it. Thank you for having us.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, you can stay.
Yeah, you want to stay? Come on.
Oh,
Everybody
I wonder the
leaves.
next meeting.
Right?
Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody. It was great to meet you.
Bye, guys.
Right.
yes.
Come on.
Okay. 2.1B, 137 Winter Street Extension. Okay, so at our last meeting, we had received a correspondence requesting that this property be, that we allow this property to leave our tax roll so they can go on to the North Greenbush Common tax rolls. This is the second time we've had this request for that property, and I think we just wanted to have a quick discussion about it. I know you spoke to legal. We wanted to get some more information from legal, so if you want to talk about what...
Sure, just to recap, as Andy had done, we had received correspondence from our property owner at 137 Winter Street, and basically it's a property, without having a map in front of me, that does lie in a very unique spot where it's surrounded by properties that are within the North Greenbush Common School District. So the property owner did request the notion, or I should say the motion, it would be a motion by the board, of being basically annexed from the school district, basically the Wine School Union Free School District, and added to the North Greenbush Common School District tax roll. So basically, how that process works when you have a property, and this occurs in many school districts around any state and probably even around the country, is basically both school districts have to agree, meaning that you have to agree to release the property, and the other school district has to agree to accept the property under their tax roll. So it's basically a dual motion that would take place. Legally, while again, school district boundaries are very unique, and they were drawn many years ago by people that no longer exist, it is basically up to the Board of Education whether they want to release the property, because with the release of that property means the loss of the revenue that goes with that as well in school taxes. And obviously the gain is the gain of the property tax to the other school district. So basically the decision does lie, we did check with legal, within basically the district deciding whether they want to release that particular parcel or property. And of course, if they did, the other district would be willing to pick it up. Very rarely would a district not be willing to pick up a property that increases their tax rolls, but obviously releasing a tax roll on our property does lower our overall tax levy. Or tax base, I should say, and then of course it does affect the levy. So.
Okay. So I'm not an expert on tax maps at all, but I did pull up the county tax map, and this property it's not on an island by itself. The back portion of this property does continue on to other properties that are part of Wynanskill, so it's not completely on an island by itself. It does look like both on the left side of it and the right side of it somehow are not part of Wynanskill, are part of
But by
North
making 137 part of Wynanskill, it makes 133 and 135 an island onto themselves.
I don't disagree with that, and I don't know how that happened.
So,
Like
so
Dr.
it
Reardon's-
makes sense that 137 would be part of it.
Well, really, we should have that whole row, because all of East Avenue coming up on the left-hand side is all wine and
Right.
skill. So it should go all the way down and around the corner.
Right.
So if Little Red, you know,
And when I did look
wants
at the
to
tax
trade.
map, it looks like where they're building all those houses now, it looks like all that property was once, I'm gonna assume it's your property.
Yes.
It was all part of your property, so your property, not your property, but the property that used to be part of your property, it all used to come up and it used to abut to the school here itself, so, you know, over time, the properties have been split up and somehow properties are on an island by themselves, but,
The entirety of Winter Street Extension
Yeah.
on the odd side of the road is North Greenbush Commons, except
Mhm.
for that one
Yep.
property.
Yep. I agree with you, and, you know, I've looked at the maps and I see that, but I don't think at this point we really wanted to let one property go, because as soon as you let one go, well, I'm next to them, and I'm next to North Greenbush, can I go to North Greenbush? And it just becomes this whole thing we want to avoid. We want to set the precedent that it's not going to be this board's policy to let properties go. So, I don't know if anybody else has anything they want to say, or...
I agree with you, because we just start a ripple effect, and
Right.
we can't afford to do that.
Can't afford it.
Right. I completely understand why you want to go, because
Because
their
it's so much
taxes are
cheaper.
so much cheaper than ours. You know, we get that. We can understand that as property owners, but, you know, as board members, we have to look out what's best for our district. So,
So
Can
you
I
can
speak
comment
on
at
this,
the
or
end.
should I wait till
Yeah,
the-
wait till the end.
yeah, I would wait till the public comment. So,
All right,
I
thanks.
know that's not probably what you wanted to hear, but,
Appreciate it, though.
okay. Thank you for coming. Okay.
We don't need formal action on that, right?
I don't believe we do, because we're not
No.
doing
Not
anything.
unless
If
you
we
were,
were
if you were
motioning
entertaining a
to-
thought, you would need a motion, but if you're not.
So we will move on. Letter C, Questar 3 budget vote, April 17th, 2018. Is that just information? Oh, it says set time.
Yeah, we usually do it in
So
the
what-
morning.
Like the 7 a.m.?
Yeah, it's our 3-minute meeting.
Oh.
We just literally come in, vote, and leave. It has to
That's
be
where
on
we
that
draw
date?
straws, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Which three of us?
I can do
Nice
We need
Which
three.
three?
solid quorum. and-
Yeah.
I can,
I don't have my calendar.
I can be there. The only thing is if there's I might be a late scratch with work, but I would know a week out if I would be a scratch. But right now, I mean, I'm here, so I can, right here. Do it.
It's a Tuesday, I most likely won't be able to be there
In the
unless I
morning?
bring the boys with me, depending on what time it is.
Yeah, I
Same
can't
with
do
me,
morning
yeah.
anymore. What'd you think?
I said, bring the boys, show them the process.
It doesn't have to be in the morning, right?
No.
It can be.
It doesn't have to
at
be.
the end of the day.
And also, if this helps, not to make it more confusing, if you wanted it to butt closer to the start of the school day, you could do the vote at 7:55, or I know we've done it earlier before work, but if that was something you wanted to do while dropping your children off, just an option. It could be at night too.
That works for me.
I'm free whenever.
Which way works for you?
7, it's closer to the start. of
Yeah,
school.
closer to the
I'm good
start
for
is
morning,
good for me.
afternoon would be rough.
We're just not home in the morning anymore, so I can't like run up here.
Mornings are better, afternoons are bad.
Yeah, I could do the
7:45?
7:45, 7:55,
Either one's fine.
7 what?
like 7:45 or 7:55?
Settle on 7:50.
Okay.
Yeah. 7:55. 8 o'clock. Just let me know.
Don't
that.
lock me out.
Sounds good.
Yeah, you won't be locked out at that time. What date is this again?
Tuesday, April 17th.
Tuesday the 17th.
Put that on my calendar. Okay. 2.2, District/Superintendent Program Report. I think you have the present budget updates for 2018-19 school year.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. Much for this portion of the meeting as well. Thank you. So what I thought I'd do is I'd give an overview since our last meeting, and though not a lot has changed, it's actually a good time to kind of consider a few things. So I will secure, if anyone wants a copy of the last budget presentation, which I did in February, it is on the website as well, but I can certainly, Ms. Hills would be happy to get you a copy of that if you want it. So basically, this PowerPoint that I have in front of you is very succinct, but it references the other PowerPoint as assuming that was all digested. So again, if anyone needs a second copy of questions, certainly let me know. So since March 15th, again, this is always the overarching piece. As you know, we build a budget based on the Board of Education goals, and particularly this year, which was very nice, we did add as a board, we did add district areas of focus. So again, you can see increased use of common team planning time, complete capital project, which you just heard the report from. Look for demographics, how best meet the needs of all students. Continue to examine special education models to serve students best. So again, that's looking at those plural of models, not just one size fits all. Outplay students, students that are coming back to district, things like that. And of course, the last one, configure and complete pre-K and new instructional space. Because as you know, with that new space besides the stage is coming 4 classrooms at the bottom, space for small group instruction, special education, but also 2 pre-K classrooms as well. So again, not just building the product, but also staffing that product and configuring it so the space is used for what it was intended to upon its original design back in 2013-14. So since the last budget meeting, and as you recall, I kind of review a couple things. There has not been any change at the state level. So there's been a lot of advocacy and lobbying on behalf of the superintendents, NICET, the teachers union. In fact, you're starting to see some emails come up where the Senate and the legislative branches are starting to actually assemble and gather and kind of propose their counter offers to the governor's executive budget. So actually 2 emails came out as of yesterday. Both the Senate and the legislature are kind of calling for an increase in school aid, an increase in foundation aid. But once again, this is the beginning of what we call the dance. And in the lobbying piece, the superintendents actually had a lobbying day on March 6th. A big portion of that was done, and actually that day was filled with many, many groups. So it wasn't just superintendents, it was school administrators, it was teachers, it was parents, PTA representatives. And basically the idea was calling for more foundation aid, and there's some other caveats to that as well when it goes to school aid as well. So not just spendable foundation aid, but also the governor proposed some caps on special education aid, reimbursable pieces that kind of go along with the aid piece. So basically, both the Senate and the legislature have proposed or counter-proposed thus far to increase aid, so kind of the global piece of aid. But once again, this is where that kind of negotiation comes from. So both proposals are very nice. The legislature calls for close to $1 billion additional in school aid. The Senate calls for around 900 and change in additional school aid. But again, that's what they're asking for. Now comes the time to negotiate it, because remember, they still have to balance their budget as well against the executive budget. So again, that's still in flux, but there's been no new release of a new state aid run. So the runs that you originally had that was provided to the public and to the board in January still exist. Until something's passed April 1st or around April 1st, those runs still exist as kind of gospel. So again, to review those numbers, right now we saw this year an increase of $23,827 in what we call foundation aid, or what we're going to call usable aid, meaning that's an increase from budget to budget that you can use to spend and program increased costs. So it's not earmarked for any particular program or any particular staffing configuration. That goes against, as you can imagine, actually I'm just going to give you a copy if you don't mind. This is the runs that were sent out, and I know the board has these, and certainly anyone in the public that would like these are available online on the website as well. But again, I just want to kind of show you a little bit how misleading this can be to the general public. So, and anyone in the public, if you certainly want copies, I'd be happy to furnish that. So again, the biggest difficulty in explaining school budget and school finance is when people look at the bottom line numbers of state aid. So just for example, when people look at wine and skill, you can see it's written down. The board has a copy of this, but certainly any public members, again, let me know. Wine and skill is the last column, and you can see it looks at the 2017-18 year on the top, and then the 18-19 year on the bottom. The reason we come up with that small number, and that's a much smaller number, to put in perspective, last year we received $96,000 increase in foundation aid. So $96,000 compared to $23,000 is quite the market difference. But many will say, well, if you look at the percentages, whoa, the aid's at $3,200,000, it was $2,835,000. Two things are occurring in that formula, just to kind of point out. Number one is, obviously, we have the building project being completed, so you're seeing an increase in building aid. So again, at one point there was an article in the Times Union that said wine and skill went up by 21% in aid. Again, that's the headline. The subheading would be, well, the building project is obviously complete or will be completed by the new year, but with that we have to start paying that back. So that aid is pretty much earmarked to start paying the principal and interest on that loan. So that 21% is not usable aid to say, oh, that can be used to fund salaries, it can be used to fund electricity. It's really used to pay back the loan that we ultimately take for the next 15 to 20 years. Also, you'll notice a lot of things that are lower in there, like you see hardware and technology, software, library, textbook, and those are called expense-driven aid factors. So basically, those are based on what the governor, or I should say, what state aid planning figures you will spend in the next school year. So once again, if you took just those numbers, you might say, well, geez, there's about $77,000, so really it's not $23,000. That's assuming you spent everything that you thought you were going to spend in your previous budget. Remember, the goal being that you don't. So for example, transportation aid might account for $30,000 of aid. You would receive that assuming you spent your entire transportation line item. Now, our goal is always to reduce our fuel costs and things like that, which is great, but it means you receive less aid. So if that makes sense, so when every time you save money on something expense-driven, you're getting less aid. So as much as you might count on the aid, you don't want to use that aid exclusively in your overall operating costs, if that makes sense. In anything you might feel the cost might go down. So for example, if we have a student that suddenly comes back in the district and we're sending one less bus route out, that's fantastic for us, but obviously that means we're saving money on salaries, fuel, things like that, so we'll say we won't receive that same aid that was projected here. So you hate to bank on receiving all that aid, and obviously you don't wind up spending that same line item. If that makes sense? Fuel is a perfect example. You want to budget right for fuel, you want to budget, and obviously you want to come in either under budget or obviously right on budget. And that's a great thing, but it means that this prediction is based on what you budgeted for, that you spent everything out of that line item. So basically, the general rule of thumb, and Belle, please correct me if I'm wrong, is I would hope you would. You basically want to plan conservatively, as you can see, based on expense-driven aid. You don't want to assume that $3,200,000 you're going to get every penny of that, because once again, if you receive even $150,000 less, that's going to affect what you did. You basically expensed more than you wound up. You basically planned for less than you wind up expending. So basically, you want to plan conservatively. You don't want to plan too conservatively, but you want to plan for any sort of change in those factors. Again, the best example is probably special education costs. If you had a student that was being sent out to an outplacement and you're receiving high-cost special ed tuition aid on that, that's fantastic. But if that student suddenly moved in October, while you're saving that cost, you're no longer receiving that aid. So if you were counting on that aid in your general budget, again, that'd be a problem. So that's just a few examples why a lot of times you'll see in general budgets, well, that seems like a lot of money. You're not accounting for everything. It's not a lack of transparency. It's just called planning conservatively. So the other figure down there, once again, this is a little bit of the review from the February piece as well. The district can levy taxes to approximately $119,000 as a result of the tax cap legislation. And again, it winds up being about a 2.3% levy increase. Now what that means again for rates, I always like to underscore that. Rates obviously are determined in August by the Office of Real Property Tax Service, but the district can levy a maximum of 2.3%. So again, even though it's called the 2% tax cap law, the formula basically maps out that you can raise up to 2.3% for a total of $119,000. That's the max you can levy in the entire Wyandotte Union Free School District. So that's a 2.3%. And again, tax rate, though, that could be a tax decrease from last year for certain townships. It could be a tax increase of 3%. It could be 5% in post-kill. It could be 1%. Again, that will be determined by, obviously, not us. So the total guaranteed income or budget increase you look at is, once again, $142,837. So that's the total guaranteed spendable money you can count on, again, assuming that the aids runs income in lower, which they rarely do. If everything stayed the same right now, that's the max that the school district could assume they could spend above this year's operating budget. So just to put in perspective, again, fixed costs, and again, if you notice I parentheses these items, contractually mandated raises. Right now we only have one contract that goes out. Again, we have two unionized contracts, or union bargaining units in the district. We have the teachers and the teacher aides. The only contract that is currently won't expire out of the two is the teacher aides, and that goes through 2020, so we can budget for that. We know exactly what that will cost, so we can put that number in. Right now, the teacher's contract expires at the end of this year, so that's a number has not been determined. We can't look at a salary schedule and say we know it's definitely going to be this, because that has to still be determined. So that's again, it would be hard to budget, but you'll see where we kind of get there. So we have the aid budget, we have the mandated raises, so again, that's the mandated raises. Health insurance, we went up that last time, that went up 8%. Retirement contributions, again, to the ERS, TRS systems. So we know those numbers, those are hard numbers we can plug in, and we know that they're fixed numbers, comes to about approximately $100,000. Okay, so once again, we look and say, well, we have $142,000 more, our fixed costs are $100,000, that's great, we still have $42,000 left. But just to put that in perspective, this leaves approximately $42,000 left to cover the teacher's contract negotiation, meaning at this point, there's not one teacher raise incorporated in that, meaning even if the contract wasn't settled, teachers would still get what's called tri-bar, or they would still get step increase. That's not included in that $100,000 because it's assuming that we're going to we're going to settle. But again, that leaves only $42,000 to cover teacher contract negotiations, all their staff groups. That again, that implies that no one else received a raise, bus drivers, cafeteria staff, custodial staff, secretarial staff, administration staff. So that's no other raise to those groups. That's not any program addition or investment in resources for general ed, special ed, and remember pre-K programming. That's going to be our last one we talk about. So that leaves $42,000 left to cover all of those other things. And again, so I'm trying to basically kind of illustrate the impossibility of that. You'd be spending $42,000 on a bill you really couldn't cash, and that's where the deficit kind of comes from already. So the total guaranteed budget increase once again is 142,000 and change, but we've estimated, remember this being an estimate, okay, that the minimal projected deficit of the district is approximately $175,000 right now if all things stayed the same. So meaning if all the things above are taken into consideration, a typical contract was settled that was fair, but also reflected the typical trends that were going in contract negotiations. The other subgroups, once again, such as our custodial staff, our school bus drivers, received at the raises that they certainly deserve. Program additions, such as, again, 8th grade health, and of course, the biggest thing, the addition of pre-K. Remember, we're adding programming. We're not seeing a reduction in enrollment. Our enrollment is going up, and that's fantastic. So that is an additional program on top of what we're already running. We're projecting the minimal the minimal deficit of being $175,000. Now, is that a large number? Absolutely. I will say, though, if you think about it, that's a pretty impressive number. Now, could it be more than that? Certainly. Could it be less than that? Absolutely. But that is pretty decent considering you haven't finished a contract yet, and also that accounts for the additional one vein of additional programming. So again, just to put out there what that would be. So again, when you look at other district deficits that are out there, you're seeing Albany out there at a couple $1 million. That's not bad, but once again, that is, again, for a small district, that might be kind of proportional. But remember, we are adding programming. We're not seeing retirements. We're not seeing anyone, any sort of salary breakage. And again, health insurance and things like that, their costs keep going up. So that would be the district's projected deficit, which once again is a subjective number because once again, that contract is kind of, again, still in negotiation. So we're estimating if we had to project where it might be, what we could possibly do. Questions so far?
No.
So still things to consider. So that number, once again, that number, if you asked to quantify, certainly we could, they would be very loose numbers because once again, that it goes. And also, I just want to point out there one piece too, that number that you see, and I just want to point out the amount of effort the district's put in, and I say this with pride, once again, that number reflects also so you go back to our goal of always reconfiguring models for special education, that number includes bringing back a very high-cost student. If that student did not return back to district, that number would be close to $300,000. So I just want to put that in perspective. So this, with a lot of creativity and doing what's best also for the student, that deficit reflects bringing a student that is currently out of district back into district. Obviously, again, if something changed, or once again, if we had another student that moved into the district that maybe changed our piece. So I just want to point out the amount of work and creativity that's gone into this. So I am very proud of that number because as much as it's high, that reflects a lot of changes to the district already. In order to make that number somewhat, it's still a very steep hill to climb, but you can imagine how that would be if it was $125,000 related to that. So just put in perspective, that does reflect that. So that was a huge piece that we've been looking at. And of course, it's what's best for students, obviously, but again, that does save us tremendously on those pieces. Hence why we estimate our aid conservatively. So things to consider, and I will put these pieces out here. So basically, you can see bullets 2 and 3 are pretty much the same things that we always look at. Okay, budget line reallocation. Bella and I consistently look at things. Again, I always use fuel as an example. Are we too high? Are we too low? Can we pull a few thousand from fuel and maybe balance something out? Or are we going to put ourselves in danger if we have a really cold winter that we're suddenly going to be, in a tough spot? Our electricity and electric have been consistent. I'm sorry, that's the same thing. Electricity and electric. Okay, like water. All right, those things are different. Those two things. Okay, bills. So they've been consistent, but obviously with an addition, you would expect those costs to go up when you're adding, two pieces. So we want to plan for that we don't receive a water bill that suddenly, our bill has been the same for a long time. It's certainly, we can anticipate that's going to go up. So things like that. Do the line items match what we're spending and what we need as well? So for example, we were a little bit low in bus parts. We found that with bus parts, again, we were a little bit low, so again, we were a little bit higher in fuel, so we might kind of match those up to reconcile. Tuition revenue, loss of students against potential gain. As you know, we graduate in 8th grade class, so we have students that leave, but then we pick up students, if they're coming to 2nd grade from the North Greenwich Common School District, and those that pay tuition outside that. But sometimes you lose more than you gain, so we're trying to reconcile and make sure that those are set. And of course, our high school tuition, we talked about those things as well. Our high school decisions have come in now, but we still use that formula of the magic 3, the 3 higher cost ones, because once again, it allows us to build that cushion for those students that move into our district in grades 9 and above, or if those students switch high schools, we have that there. So bullet 1 is probably our biggest point to consider tonight is pre-K. Once again, remember, and again, I say that too, we are adding programming. We're adding programming without subtracting. Again, as many districts sometimes have the benefit of, we're not seeing an enrollment decline where we're saying, oh, we'll take a 3rd grade section that's getting small, an ironic grade to use, that's a huge grade, but our 4th grade group is getting smaller, so we'll take one teacher from 4th grade, we'll go to one section, and we'll go to pre-K. We're growing. In fact, I anticipate us hitting 400 into the fall next year. That's fantastic. We were started at about 300 when I began, I believe. We always said approximately 300, we were about 290 something, so that's awesome for us. We're growing when most are declining. So again, it's hard to reallocate any sort of internal staff for that. So the board's kind of two pieces. As you can see, the last bullet is the creation of an 18-19 master schedule that provides the most offerings. As you know, we never want to balance the budget on the back of another component of the budget. For example, we never want to look to reduce athletics for the sake of adding, pre-K, or reduce a middle school elective to add another course, because once again, we're just taking from one section to another. But you can see 8th grade health is a big piece. We want to read the current 8th grade, 7th grade, rising 8th grade class has not had health, and we'd like to add that back in, but add that back in and do it well, meaning by a certified health teacher that can really address the health topics, particularly that's been a big piece, as you know, the mental health piece and the opioid crisis. We want that course done well. We don't want to just run for the sake of being run for a credit. We want it run and addressed appropriately. So again, that does require an additional scheduling piece. But probably bullet number one is the most to consider for the evening, is pre-K 1 class or 2, and of course service provider. So again, the building is slated for 2 classes, 2 pre-K rooms, but it does come down to what can the district afford, because again, it is an additional program without any subsidization. There are not universal pre-K grants available. Yes, the legislative branch did propose opening those up, but it still had that caveat of going to the neediest school districts first. So I guess I'm not as hopeful that we're going to see that. It'd be great if we did, any bonuses, but it's still that release money for pre-K for neediest districts first. And again, I think as much as we have an increased demographic of free reduced lunch, I don't know that it's going to be high enough to trigger any sort of significant aid to come back to us. Maybe a couple $1,000, but nothing that's going to fill a classroom. So the board kind of has a decision to take a look at, or I should say as a group we do, is pre-K obviously is opening, and then we did promise the community that program when we received approval for that building. So we do have the option, though, of course, of running 1 class or 2. And then, of course, the second piece is a service provider. And so one of the pieces I just would like to draw your attention to is, so besides the 8th grade health piece, which is there, is that 175 you see. And again, that give or take, I'm going to say give or take 20,000. I know it sounds very open, but again, all those things to be considered. That does include the addition of programming, but that does include 1 pre-K classroom. And that does include 1 pre-K classroom where the service is being provided by an outside service provider. That's actually using CEO Head Start out of Troy. And once again, that's because, again, this being our first year through, we want this program also done right. We don't want this to be a learning curve. Again, we want this to be something that our families can jump into with the curriculum, the materials, and especially for our youngest learners, it really shouldn't be an experiment. But that does include 1 classroom. So what we did budget in when Bill and I built this, 1 classroom for that. Now, obviously, if we added a second classroom, we'd have to add, basically, to give you a number for there, in that 175, 1 classroom is approximately $98,000. But again, that includes the staffing, the materials, the curriculum and those pieces, and the administrative costs that go with that. It's outside administrative. While we did price it with current WTA staff members and other programs, we did find that the cost was just something that we really necessarily couldn't digest at this point. To put it in perspective, to have it run by our own staff, meaning a WTA member, it'd be about $150,000 per classroom, just because of the contractual breaks and prep periods, things like that. Questar, we also priced out, that was $157,000, ironically, per classroom. That wasn't aidable, so that was even more than that. So this is why conservatively, while we'd love to have it be our own staff, financially speaking, we did look at this organization, and we visited a lot of classrooms that did feature this, and they really had solid programming too. So it wasn't just a random, cheapest draw. It was what did we see, what did we like, and who was providing that service. It happened to be CEO Head Start, and that's why we used that kind of negotiated price. We did put an RFP up, by the way, for pre-K. It closed as of today at noon, and we did not receive anyone that did put a bid in, which is good. At least we know we put it out there, but that's why we've been kind of a little bit attached to using CEO Head Start as kind of our baseline, based on what we've seen and also what they've offered us in terms of pricing.
We get some sort of state aid per student. Do we get that for the 4-year-olds?
We do not.
We don't.
Great question.
And how many kids in a per classroom?
Excellent question. This model is based on a maximum of 18. The reg is 18 students for 1 teacher, 1 teacher assistant. You could add a second teacher assistant and have up to 22 in that classroom. But then that would change, so then that $98,000 per classroom might go up maybe another $30,000.
Okay.
And then, of course, the board have to consider is the juice worth the squeeze. If you add the second teaching assistant and you pick up 4 more, does it really open the opportunities up a bit more? So, but that's a great question. But you can't have more than 22. You couldn't have 25 if you added a third assistant or anything like that. So just to go back to, basically, as you can see, that is probably the biggest consideration, but I just want to draw the attention that that budget number does reflect 1 classroom with an outside service provider in that factor.
As much as I'd love to say we could do 2 classrooms and service as many 4-year-olds in the district as we could, financially, after seeing the numbers from being on the committee and stuff, my feeling is we go with 1 class, we go with the CEO. They're experienced, they're going to come in here and run it right from the start. and do right by the kids that we can serve.
And was that the findings of the committee?
Pardon?
Is that the findings of the preschool
I don't
committee?
think we really,
You know, great question. At that point, budgetary numbers weren't released yet, so in terms of classrooms. But I will say, based on our classroom visits, the CEO Head Start classes were the ones that drew the most attention. Like, those are the ones that really topped in terms of, we love the programming, we love the design. Those are the ones that kind of stood out. I was like, we should take a closer look at this organization.
Thank you.
And Head Start, they're known for running
Yeah.
an excellent
Right.
pre-K
Excellent.
program.
Yes. And again, we did actually put out, I put out my feelers to our other, component school districts. So we did get pricing. So the committee, actually, Darcy, great question. The committee did review pricing for the other pieces, but there was 2 other groups that came in cheaper. But I would not recommend, nor based on what we saw, that we use those groups.
Thank you.
The price is reflective of the service in that case.
Well, I'm in agreement with Kathy. I'm not comfortable with 2 classrooms.
So if we do go with 1 and we get 30 people that want pre-K, do we hold a lottery? Have we determined how we're going to determine who we're going to service?
That's a great question. And I would think that is, I'm actually probably the second piece. I think the board's first charge would be obviously that question would be dependent on how you answer goal number 1. So if we do run 1 classroom, depending on all financial circumstances stay the same, the board would have the option of how they determine that. Because pre-K is an optional program, so it's not a matter of, and most districts we did find, again, from Albany to Troy, have done some sort of lottery. Some have done it where they've used, for example, they've maybe said, okay, after those students that are receiving services filled those spots, there were 12 spots left, so anyone interested entered the lottery. So depending on how the board wanted that, they could give those students that are receiving OTPT, speech, or special ed services first priority, and then say, okay, whatever's left, so to speak. Because remember, a family could also decline and say, that's okay, we're going to stick with our current provider, or they could say absolutely, and that might depend on how many spots you have left. Now, regardless, though, if I may point out, as you know, the building will not be done until June. So again, this will be, and that's part of the video that we did put on Facebook and our website. Unlike most years, now we're doing kindergarten night in March and things like that. But obviously, this will be the kind of an off year because we won't be releasing this information until probably the summer. So we want to make sure those rooms are done in the middle of June. We want to make sure. So this will probably affect how many people we have coming forward because some might have already committed to a program or be attached to it. But obviously, in the future, the goal is that we'll know what we're doing around March and April.
and maybe if money comes up, we can add an aide and bump it up to 22, but stick with the 1 classroom to start with. We've never had pre-K in the district, so anything that we have, we want it done right and we want it done good for those kids.
To put in perspective, enrollment-wise too, I should say, Ichabod Crane was one site that we did visit. And again, Ichabod Crane Central School District, a much larger district than us, they ran 1 classroom. They had, they had 2 half-day programs, which we agreed as a committee that half-day was not really worth pursuing. But for the whole district, they ran 2 half-day programs of about 18, or maybe they went up to 22. But so again, you're talking a lottery of 44 amongst a cohort of 150 potential students. So just to point out, it would not be abnormal to have more students interested in what you could offer at this point. With the goal being, of course, of growing that program as finances became available.
For preschool?
Is pre-K open to Little Red?
At this point, I would look at the board, but no, this would be for district residents.
And then, I just lost my train of thought.
For preschoolers that do receive services, that's subsidized by the county. Is it just for their service, or how does that work? Does it pay for some of their preschool as opposed to their services?
Depending on the level of service, I know, well, basically for us, it's that the county does provide the services, and actually it's subsidized by what's called the 611 grants, which basically 611, which is again a second grant, basically takes care of those costs. So if a child's receiving speech services in preschool, if they're receiving speech services as a preschool age student, the 611 grants cover that, so it's kind of a wash distance. It doesn't seem like an expense or a profit. Some of those are delivered in the home, I believe, at times. Sometimes they are delivered in a preschool setting, like a general preschool setting. Some of the more intense placements would be, a preschool setting, like almost like an outplacement, if you will. And then the county picks up the bill for that preschool. So it could be anything from the entire preschool experience to speech twice a week, in their current North Greenbush preschool.
So if we had we would get money from the county?
Absolutely, yes. Or the county would literally come in and service, depending if yes. It wouldn't be taxing on our staff.
would there be any possibility, if we are gonna have that extra classroom, of renting that out? Would anybody be interested in renting that space and we could draw some revenue?
That's an excellent question you asked. You know, one of the things that we've been pursuing is actually leasing space because Questar has indicated they are at a shortage of places to set up programming. And actually, they're in a shortage of places to set up programming where they can have more than one room. Because one of the things that's challenging for Questar is to have one classroom in one location and one in another. But if you have two rooms that you can provide where they can kind of connect two classes, that's very interesting to them. So while, again, that'd be a great source of revenue for us, and not buttoned down, I have been in touch very much with Questar, and they are very interested in some of the spaces we have available. So it could be that extra pre-K room and perhaps a space downstairs. It could be two spaces downstairs. So absolutely, that space could certainly be leased out. And we are pursuing every avenue. We are cold calling. So actually, to go back to your original question, Andy, so yes, I mean, the district obviously could then decide, again, based on, and also, now there's also a possibility, I don't know if this would necessarily happen, if you had, for example, 18 students, but you only had 10 that were interested. I don't know that that would necessarily happen, considering the census shows that we have about 40-something 4-year-olds. You could then tuition that out. So theoretically, you could earn revenue, but at this point, I don't see that happening with 18 slots. Or maybe 22 slots, but potentially you could tuition and say, okay, 10, all GD residents had a shot and only 10 chose to express interest. There's 8 spots, and I can guarantee you that you'd sell those spots if they were open.
I mean, and as you said, by that point, a lot of families will have committed to other preschools, but I think many would give up their deposit to pay tuition for the monthly bill there to have free. So, I think we'll end up with more than enough kids.
And there's wishful thinking. We see how those become. But yes, I think you're right.
Does this need a motion or a vote, or?
Great question. I would say at this point, more I'm just looking for guidance because basically if you wanted to alter that scenario, it would obviously affect how we proceeded with the budget. Meaning if the board wanted to go with 2 classrooms, or
so basically the vote will come when we do the budget.
Exactly.
I got you.
And my recommendation would be that in terms of, now the committee did a fantastic job, again, a shout out to all the people that were on the pre-K committee, because we really discussed and visited, it really was a 2-year standing committee, everything from a list of questions to then, in the end, we pretty much narrowed everything down. But the final logistics, we, in terms of meals, we talked about that at one meeting. I would say we would decide once we adopted a budget. Once we knew the budget was set, and once we were able to open that up to the community, I think once even the building was done, the things like, what time does the program start? Does it go 8 to 3? Does it go 8:30 to 3:30? Does it, those things could be decided by the board level or a small subcommittee. But obviously that would be once we locked into a program and a program provider. So lottery, things like that. When do we do a lottery? How would that be done? How do we want to advertise that? Things like that. But again, I think that would have to come, my recommendation would be after a budget passes. I think you just want to make sure that was, because this is all depending on this budget passing.
Okay.
Is the board okay with me proceeding, or us proceeding with the scenario of 1 classroom with the outside service provider of CEO head start?
Yes.
And of course, our priorities remain the same, to obviously do those things, but without jeopardizing something else. So again, I just want to recommend that 175 was built without any sort of massive cut. And of course, the bottom piece is brought a comprehensive pre-K through 8, so that's changed now. Model for the above goal is that it's fiscally conservative for the short and long haul. So again, the goal is, and actually it's been we've been very successful, of building a budget that is sustainable. So next year we're not saying, we made it through 1 year, but okay, here's the problem we have now. Now we're short, $290,000 because we took from this line item. This reflects no borrowing from fund balance, and it also reflects making our debt service payments on time. So it's good. Okay, and next steps, of course, the goal being that the budget is passed April 1st. It looks like the Senate and legislative budgets are moving, so I think that's a good sign. It is an election year, so I think we can be hopeful that this does happen on April 1st. That'll be exciting. And of course, with that, the sooner we have that information, we can obviously take that information back depending on what we get. It'd be great to get another $175,000, and then this would be done. But of course, also we're finishing the contract negotiations, things like that. So I still see us having to close a gap. It would be great to expect more aid that would match the deficit, but I don't think we'll see that. We never would. But of course, that's where Belle and I come into our daily, or thrice daily meetings of what can we look at, what's the scenario we can look at, things like that.
Keep in mind, I think
fun challenge, though. Ella and I make a great team.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Did you have any other superintendent report before I move on?
I was going to say that pretty much captures the state of the state for the most part.
Okay.
I know Dr. Yost will be kind of capturing the building level pieces that have been happening.
Yep.
I'll just kind of add that we are 2 weeks away, as of 2 weeks last Tuesday, before our trip to Washington, D.C. So we are ready for our 8th graders. We just had that parent meeting last night.
Nice.
And other than the delays and closings, we still have one more snow day left, so that's good. I mean, that's not, we hope not to even prefer that, but it is,
Next week.
with some interesting weather, so, you know.
Looks like it's going away.
Tuesday
Looks like it's
and
going away.
Wednesday. It is, it's going out.
That's what they're saying.
Out to sea.
We're not gonna get hit.
Perfect.
Let's hope so.
Excellent.
Okay, thank you. 2.3, principal's report. Dr. Yost?
We have been very busy. We have kindergarten open house. At this point, we have 33 students enrolled, so that is good news. Kindergarten screening is scheduled for March 23rd. K-8, we've had a lot of educational programs happening in the last couple weeks, so thanks to Linda Ficura and the Arts and Education Committee to bring in some of these educational programming. We had, for the first time since I've been here, some residents working in here for a week. So George Steele was an ecologist in residency. He was here for the week doing a lot of programs. K-8, everyone would have a different theme. Mammals, insects, habitats, Native Americans, deer, ponds, owls, trees. I mean, each grade level did something different, so he had a lot of hands-on experiences for the students, and that was great. He also kicked off our Parents as Reading Partner program this month, where we're doing a whole school reading again on Rachel Carson, the environmentalist. So that was great to have him here. Last week, Jackie Sweeney was here. She was here as an author in residence. She worked on descriptive writing with all the different grade levels. They worked on descriptive writing, if I were an animal, if I were a musical instrument, if I were a mythological creature. Each grade level, she worked in each classroom a day at a time through the week. She was here yesterday doing a staff development after school for both elementary and middle school, just to keep kids writing and really being creative. And the kids had a great time. So just a different spin for some of the presentations to try to get them in the classroom to work with teachers. So in the science, social studies, and writing. So it was great. They really enjoyed it, though they were working really hard the whole time during these residencies. So that was a really great experience. Science fair last night with Kate Cronin and Kristen Galuli, 3-5. The kids did a great job and really loved bringing in and showing off these science experiments, which they all did at home and came in, so it was pretty easy for the 4th grade team to have it, and it just was, it was outstanding, so that was a great job. Odyssey of the Mind competition last weekend, so our students and coaches did an amazing job, so that was certainly a big undertaking, so thank you to everybody who made that happen. The talent show, Darcy Mack, an amazing job. I mean, so well received. We might have to rent out a hall or something else.
It's so big.
Yeah, it is growing and growing, but great job and just wonderful. So busy.
Next year we'll have the stage.
Yeah.
Right, to be able to put more chairs, right?
That's where to go.
Right, we don't have to use
Absolutely.
up that kitchen.
Yeah.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah. So it's good.
It was a great
Should I just go
turnout.
first and I'll give the
Sure,
talent show
sure.
stats? Go ahead, you can read what.
Sure. Thank you for that, Dr. Yotis. 2.4, PTA and SEPTA updates.
All right,
Sounds like
so,
SEPTA is gonna go
yeah,
first.
that's what we'll go first. So we had the talent show, as Mary indicated, and we had 48 students and 25 acts, and it was just absolutely fabulous. Everybody, all the kids just did a great, you get really nervous, like, the auditions you're really nervous, and then the rehearsal you're like, oh, but they really pull it together by the time the show comes up, so very proud of them, and really Kate Rodriguez and Jeff Abbas are really the ones who put the program together. I mean, I reserved the room and make some copies, but honest to God, they're the ones who really pull that together. So, all the kudos should go to them. We raised $700, over $700 on our Scepter raffle. That was the first time we added a raffle, and that was really great. The we also did a Hoop 7 food drive. So it was free admission, but if you could, please bring a food donation. And we put a jar there, and the jar got $100, so that was exciting. And the 8th grade made some money. I think they were around $140 that they made for their trip. So, you know, it was a free, fun event, and then we had some little things going on in the background. So very proud. And our next SEPTA meeting is next Thursday on 3/22 at 6:30 here in the library. And, you know, we're hoping to plan something for the spring. It's going to be focused on middle school, something that, you know, all children can participate in. And we're thinking maybe like robotics, something along those lines. Yeah.
I do have to say, with the talent show, those girls who did the bobbleheads,
Oh, my God.
I couldn't stop laughing. They did, all the kids did a great job, but those girls, that was just perfect.
You found it
Well,
on
and then
YouTube, I guess. Yeah.
The
Hysterical.
crowning moment at the end, seeing Sydney Davy get up on stage.
Yeah, like
I
I
mean-
said, Ann put that on Facebook, you know, it
I
was a
was not
show that
prepared
made
for
you
that.
laugh and it made you cry.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
it really had a lot of emotion to it. You know, everybody knows Sydney Davy, but Mr. Yeager might not. You know, Sydney was the girl who fell off a horse and was in a coma for 3 months, and it took her a year before she could walk again. And she got up on stage at the end and sang a song, and, you know, it was just absolutely beautiful. And there wasn't a dry eye in the place. So a lot of laughing, a lot of crying. It's a great show.
I give all the kids so much credit for getting up there. I mean, I wouldn't have done that at a young age with some of those kids. And I just give them so much credit for getting up there, and it was just awesome.
It really, really was.
Did you say bubbleheads or bobbleheads?
Bobble.
Gobbleheads, yeah.
Wait a minute, there's some bubbles over there. And you're what you do.
Well,
It has a meaning.
what they did was they printed out pictures of the different teachers' faces,
Yeah.
and somehow they attached it.
Very large.
They were
Very
real
large.
big, and they were just up there dancing around, and just seeing like Dr. Reardon's face up there just dancing around, the different teachers.
Yeah,
It was fun.
It was funny. And the kids did it. The what?
I guess-
Which is it?
It's bobble.
Bobble.
That's fine.
Like, you know, you go to the Joe and you get the little bobbleheads.
Okay,
Those.
I know.
Oh, you think they're bubble?
No.
I didn't say that. I said, what I said was, bubblehead, I know. I am.
Okay.
So rain sail.
I don't think these girls were on the submarine.
No.
Okay. We will move on to PTA. Ms. Bennett?
Okay. So I'm Nicole Herbanik, the co-president of PTA. I submitted my report for your review, but I wanted to call your attention to two things tonight. So the first thing is that on the 23rd of this month at Paolo Lombardi's, we are having a staff teacher parent night out. So if you hadn't heard about that, I would welcome you to please join us. I'm very excited. And the second thing I wanted to bring your attention to was PTA has created what we're calling at this point a demographics committee. And one of the things we've done is started exchanging ideas, and our focus is going to be developing ideas for feedback and evaluating budget considerations and how we use our monies for next year. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Oh, yes, Dr. Reardon.
No, nice.
Okay. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is the YMCA?
What?
Well done.
You know. Thank you. I'm sorry.
I see the YMCA thing is pending, is that?
That is still pending. I think Dr. Yoda's had a meeting today. Did you have a meeting with Ashley and,
Yes.
and Coach?
Yes.
Do you have an update on that at all?
Yep, we're gonna push it back to May, June.
Okay.
A little bit, so that it doesn't conflict with Lego.
Oh, that makes sense.
Because they could only do Wednesday, and
Yeah.
when we looked at the enrollment, K and 1, they have almost 40 students enrolled in Lego. So we thought if we pushed it back, that way too, they could go outside and hopefully get rid of some snow. They can hold those sports games outside, which they wanted to do anyway. So I think at this
Great.
point,
Okay.
pushing it back a couple more, couple more weeks will really not conflict. Wait till Lego's done and get outside.
And give them some more space. Okay.
Yeah, we met today, and that sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun, and that's going to be working with Coach Bateman and his 8th graders last period to be doing some of that
Like mentoring.
collaboration.
Yeah, they're going to do some character
awesome.
developing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we thought that'd be a good experience for our 8th graders and certainly our little guys.
revising.
I'm excited to
K1.
see that come together.
Yeah, so it's happening.
Good.
Questions? Discussion? No? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
3.0, appointments and authorizations. 3.1, approve CSE, CPSE recommendations as per attached.
Motion?
Second.
Questions or discussion?
Mrs. Castle?
Yes.
Mr. Hirakawa?
Yes.
Mr. Lanacy?
Yes.
Mrs. Mack?
Yes.
Mr. Strang?
Yes.
3.2, accept the resignation of Amanda Rich as full-time teacher's aide effective March 23rd, 2018. Need a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Any discussion?
No. Just get it over with.
This is a hard one.
Okay.
Just to point out, this is not it's a sad day for us, but it's not a harsh resignation. Ms. Rich has taken another job with accounting, so good move for her. A loss for us, but she will still stay on in the coaching capacity, I believe. She'll be with Mr. DeSoto to kind of work out details if that's possible. But if she can, she'll be staying on, I think, once they work out those details.
Mrs. Castle?
Yes.
Mr. Hirakawa?
Yep.
Mr. Lanacy?
Yes.
Mrs. Mack?
Yeah.
Mr. Strang?
3.3, approve the revised 2018-19 school district calendar. Need a motion? Need a second?
Second.
You want to discuss the revision?
Sure. I want to thank you for allowing us to take two at this one. So basically, we took a look at the calendar. The last calendar you approved, we appreciate. But what happened was we realized that Regents Week in June was pushed out to the end of June. So I thought we'd had one more year of the early June, if you call it. You know, this year graduation is June 21st or 22nd. Next year, the Regents exams go through June 25th and 26th, which means graduation will happen on June 27th, which meant we had a unique problem of we had to find days. So again, we build in 5 community days. We had to find other days to kind of build in so that we were within our contractual confines. So you'll see we start actually, it's kind of a nice student-friendly calendar. We start after Labor Day with students coming back on a Thursday, so rather than starting them right on Tuesday. And it does build in for a few longer weekends. And also it does make for 5 built-in days that are past the poor weather years. So we kind of purposely put those days later so that we weren't in a spot of using up any potential days off and then going back for a break. So I think it's a very student and weather-friendly calendar.
Now children don't have to come in after graduation.
Correct.
Which always seems silly, but I guess if we have to do it, we have to do it.
And we still have one more day this year to play with it. Otherwise, it'll be an exciting day after graduation.
Okay.
Do a test that day.
Mrs. Castle? Mr. Hirakawa?
Yes.
Mr. Lanacy?
Yes.
Mrs. Mack?
Yes.
Mr. Strang?
Yes.
3.4, approve Sarah Lant and Hannah Teague for extracurricular appointment homework center for the 27-18 school year as per the WTA contract.
Motion.
Second.
Any questions or discussion? Just assuming they want to get in the rotation.
Absolutely.
Mrs.
Correct.
Castle?
Yes.
Mr. Hirakawa?
Yes.
Mr. Lanacy?
Yes.
Mrs. Mack?
Yes.
Mr. Strang?
Yes.
3.5, approve Neil Benassi for permanent bus driver position at $16.88 per hour effective April 2nd, 2018. This is ending the 6-month probationary period.
Moved.
Second?
Second.
I think that describes it all. It's just ending the
And it's,
6-month
Just can't stay away.
Exactly. Yes, he's really enjoying that retirement.
I love it.
Mrs. Castle?
Yes.
Mr. Hirakawa?
Yes.
Mr. Lanacy?
Yes.
Mrs. Mack?
Yes.
Mr. Strang?
Yes.
3.6, approve snow plowing service season contract to High Tech Lawn and Snow Service for the 18-19 school year at $6,000 a season. Price for salt is $250 per application, and removal of snow/pushback upon request is $400 per occurrence. Need a motion?
Motion.
Second.
This was bid out.
It was?
It was, and their prices are the same as this year.
Okay. Did we receive any other bids, or were they the only bidder?
No, but I had a lot of calls this year, which is a first, so.
Any other questions?
Mrs. Castle?
Yes.
Mr. Hirakawa?
Yes.
Mr. Lanacy?
Yes.
Mrs. Mack?
Yes.
Mr. Strang?
Yes.
3.7, approve transportation maintenance, storage of vehicles, and vehicle service contract to Molson's Garage for the 2018-19 school year at storage for $6,000 for the year, plus the cost of electricity. Preventative maintenance inspection at $82.50 per bus, DOT inspection at $85, and the cost of other service and repairs at $85 per hour.
Motion.
Second.
Any questions or discussion? I think it's pretty descriptive.
Same price as last year as well.
That's a bid also, right?
Yes.
Yes.
And we didn't receive any other
No
bidders?
calls.
And I don't think they've raised their prices in a while, right? They've
I
been,
think they've been pretty.
they've been very good at keeping their prices.
Good.
Mrs. Castle?
Yes.
Mr. Hirakawa?
Yes.
Mr. Landacy?
Yes.
Mrs. Mack? Yes. Mr. Strang?
Yes.
3.8, approve refuse removal service contract to County Waste and Recycling Services Incorporated for the 18-19 school year at $400 per month.
Motion.
Second.
This was bid out.
We did, we had one other bid that was $683 a month. And this is also the same company we have this year at the same cost.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay.
Mrs. Castle?
Yes.
Mr. Hirakawa?
Yes.
Mr. Landacy?
Yes.
Mrs. Mack? Yes. Mr. Strang?
Yes.
3.9, approve the memorandum of understanding regarding athletic participation between the Wine and Skill Union Free School District and the Brunswick Central School District, East Greenbush Central School District, and the Troy City School District.
Motion.
Second.
You just want to describe what this is again?
Sure,
I
as you
read
might.
over it
Oh,
a couple months ago.
great point. So as you recall, we did agree to wait till we could put all these on the agenda at the same time. This is the reciprocal agreements that we have with Averill Park. So now with our 4 schools, we have 5, but of course Tech Valley doesn't offer sport athletics. This is that agreement regarding the legislation that came out from state regarding the play-up policies and eligibility for athletics at the high school level. So basically, this just irons out that agreement so it's consistent between Averill Park and us, Troy, Brunswick. So basically, we have those agreements back. We worked that out. They went through their council, so everything vetted through. So these things are ready to be signed, and we're all set.
Same, wording's the same, obviously,
Exactly.
other than just the district.
And they went through the same process we did of, okay, let's vet it through our council, our board, some questions. So basically, we just wanted to wait till we had everything at the same time to accept.
Mrs. Castle? Mr. Hirakawa?
Yes.
Mr. Landacy?
Yes.
Mrs. Mack?
Yes.
Mr. Strang?
Yes.
Okay, 4.0, informational.
Andy signs.
She's already sent me a
Oh.
envelope full of things to sign. Um, 4.0, informational. 4.1, candidate petitions are due back April 16th, 2018 by 5 p.m. to the district office. 4.2, candidate position ballot draw, April 17th, 2018 at 9 a.m. 4.3, Questar 3 budget vote, April 17th, 2018, at the time we discussed earlier, 7:55?
7:50.
7:50?
Yep, 7:50 a.m.
4.4, our next regular Board of Ed meeting, April 19th, 2018, at 7 p.m. And 4.5, opportunity for the public to comment. Do we have any signers?
I have no signers.
Looks like we have one member in the audience who has a question or a comment.
I'd like to make my comment on the 137 Winter.
Sure.
As most everybody here knows, there's always going to be somebody next to you that you're not in the same town, you're not in the same district, you might not be in the same state. But life goes on. I understand obviously why they want to have it reduced, but guess what?
As do we, and like I said, we have to think about what's best for our district.
I don't have to think very far. The answer was no, and it's been no for years. So anyway, that's the answer. Now, we start budget vote, workshops. As far as the budget goes, are there any workshops left?
Currently, there are none scheduled, but we'll use the April 19th for the budget workshop as well. And if we need to schedule a meeting after that, which we've typically done for clarification, we've done that before. So.
Now, another reason I go against it, we're charging Little Red $7,000 a year, give or take a couple. Yet we're paying I'm paying, most taxpayers here, in this, we're paying almost 20 a year to educate a child in this building. So why in the world would you want to give them a break? That's, well, it's common sense. And another, the bus driver position, is there any benefits involved in that figure?
I don't believe that there are.
They're not.
No help?
He receives health and benefits, but it's not in that figure. That's the hourly rate.
Okay, so he has to pay extra, or it comes out of the 1688.
It comes out, he pays a portion of that comes out of his 1688.
A portion, okay. Let's continue on that. Does he have to pay 100%, or do we have to pay a percentage of it?
He's a retiree now, so he pays the retiree portion.
Okay, but is the retiree portion?
50%.
50%. So it is costing us money beyond the 1688.
Not because of the 1688.
Whether we were paying him $16.88 or not, he's still retired, he'd still receive that same benefit.
Okay, but the bottom line is, he's gonna make more than 1688 now.
Actually, to clarify, no, in this particular person, no, he retired from the district at another title.
Okay.
And that's separate, and now that just reflects what he makes an hour.
So that's
yeah.
1688.
Yes, this particular person, yes.
Well, I understand there, but I'm gonna make sure. Transportation maintenance, you say, all the same? The same for refuse removal. Very good. I'm happy.
Me too.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Did we have a need for executive session? Yes? So I need someone to make, looks like Dr. Reardon needs an executive
so
session.
moved.
2 minutes?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Sure, I'll make a motion for
Second.
executive session.
And it's for the medical, financial, credit, or employment history of a particular person or corporation or matters leading to the appointment, employment, promotion, demotion, discipline, suspension, dismissal, or removal of a particular person or corporation. We had a motion in a second, and...
Second.
All in favor?
All in favor? Okay. Thank you, everybody.